First of all, I wanted to commend all the speakers. This is actually really good, and I really enjoyed being here to see this. What I thought I'd do is just tell you a little bit about my background, a little bit about how we tend to do things, because I think as entrepreneurs, it's very important to understand who you're asking money from, so you can better understand what they're looking for to make sure that you find the sweet spot. So I've been at Venrock for the past 6 months, and before this, I used to be with another venture firm called Aslan. I primarily invest in the life sciences. I have a medical degree, so basically I look at early and middle stage companies that are either medical devices, biotechnology, or healthcare services. Venrock as a firm is one of the oldest venture capital firms. We have approximately $1.5 billion under management. It was originally the venture arm of the Rockefeller family, and then in 1995 it became more institutionalized. Because we were one of the first ones, we had the opportunity to participate in many great companies such as Apple and Intel, a lot of famous companies today. Really, back then, there were a few places that they could go to, and that sort of started our legacy. So, when you're thinking about looking at different, looking for money, there's different folks that can provide you with money. So when somebody's looking for money from Venrock, for example, it's important to understand that, we have funds that are, in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So what we try to do is we try to be able to, in every deal, deploy enough money so that when the return comes back, again, if it's positive enough that it moves the deal. So for example, we plan to make approximately something like 10 deals a year across all the different partners in the firm, and we hope to invest somewhere between $10 and $15 million into the deal so that when the outcome comes back, it's pretty big. See, if we invest $1 million into a deal and it turns out to be a 40x, which is an amazing return, that's $40 million back into a $1.5 billion fund, which doesn't really change the needle that much. So it's important for you to realize when you're looking for seed stage funding or later stage funding that you're actually either looking for angels who can provide you with some of that initial capital, or if you need more capital, then you can go for the people that can do that. The other thing in terms of thinking about the sweet spot is the industry. Venrock, for example, only invests in life sciences, again, which is the area that I work in, and then we also invest in IT and communications. So, as you're thinking about, which funds you want to approach and how much money you need, it's important to go through their website and understand what are their sweet spots, because generally those are the areas that are going to be more likely to invest. A couple of general comments just on the companies, and then we're actually going to go through specifics. A lot of people were very good at different dimensions. When you think about a company, on the book there was a list of the 10 different items which everybody needs to be thinking about. But it was clear that some of those items were really well covered by some of the companies, and there were other items which were a little bit less thought through. So I think I don't want to repeat what those different items are because they're clearly delineated in the book, but I would ask all of the companies to actually go through that book and really think through whether you thought about all of the financial plan, how it can be sustainable, can you really commercialize it, because I think it'd be a good lesson. But we'll go through more specifics in a little bit.
I'm Siegel, and I am a certified life coach, and I promise you I won't be talking about hugging trees or drinking Kool-Aid. I'm not sure if many of you know what coaching is about, but I would just say briefly that coaching really takes the best of therapy, mentoring, consulting, and even friendship, and puts all those best qualities together to enable my clients to achieve the results that they want. I'm on the board of directors of the International Coach Federation, so I'm very active in the industry. My clients typically are people who are interested in career coaching, going through transition, and also very relevant here with many startup companies, as I can help them with putting together what they need in order to speak to the venture capitalists or money people, since I don't provide money, but I help you to do what you need to do to get the money. What I like to say is I help my clients to create goals and then goals, action plans, and then work with them to make sure that they stay on point and achieve those results. In terms of just some overall general comments that I had today, I really believe that there are three things that make a company successful: having a world-class product or service that that somebody needs, having a passion for what it is that you do, and also having a financial model. And that makes sense. And during the dot-com days, of which I was right in the middle of, There were those first two items, but there wasn't any financial model. It was typically, if I'd asked a company, what is it that, how are you going to make money? Which the typical response those days was, well, it's not about that, it's about what venture capital firm is backing me, who's on my board of directors, that type of thing. I think the world has changed a lot today, and how one makes money is an important factor. So those three things I think are important. One other general comment, which you probably heard me make before, was the presentations, everyone except for one stood behind the podium, and maybe it's just a pet peeve of mine that you kind of have to step out of the box, as someone had suggested before when I was chatting about it, and do something a little different. And I'm not saying something crazy, but getting in front of the audience and connecting with the audience and looking at the audience, it's possible to do, and it was done here. One didn't have to stand next to their laptop. You obviously have a remote device, so I think it's important that that's something that you should all consider, which is how do I connect with my audience? And one other item which wasn't covered much was, well, two. One was competition and barriers to entry, which I think is something that you will have to think about. And then spending a little more time, I know you don't have much for 3 minutes, but how you're going to make money is really important if you expect anyone to give you any money. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Hi, again, I'm Tom Mulligan. I'm here representing JPMorgan Chase, or really representing myself and having the opportunity to work for JPMorgan Chase. I've been with the company about 12 years, and what I do is currently handle a portfolio of customers in Manhattan, mostly made up of entrepreneurs or companies that have been established in the New York City area. They could be anywhere from companies of typically 3 years to many, many years, generations of families. One of the good things I like to see about this event is that it's a pitch of an idea, it's a pitch of a belief in a business. And day in and day out, when I call and talk to my customers, whether it's on the phone or in person, a lot of times it's going to roll around to a loan opportunity or credit. The company's looking for something. And what I always like to say is telling the story. Where's the company? Where has it been? Where's it going? How are you going to get there? Those are some of the important things. It may differ a bit from VC money, but it's still telling a story about your business. It's projecting where this business is going to go, what you believe in. It puts me as a banker at ease to say, this is somebody I believe in, and I have to buy into it. I think a lot of your pitches today proved that you have the ability to do it, and the pitches were all very diverse, very different, and it was a joy to really listen to it. Let's see. And maybe I will mention a little bit about something we look for as a bank. Typically as a commercial lender, we handle a lot of companies that have been in operations. They have a track record. They can bring you financial statements. But we also do take a look at startup companies, typically with some sort of experience in an industry. But we'll do those and couple it with a government type program like the SBA. So typically we will look at those style companies or ideas, but it's a different animal than everyday banking. Everyday banking is looking at operations and how the company did over a period of time, and so that's typically what we'll see on the commercial lending side. But that's about all I wanted to say. Again, it was a great opportunity to be here. I really enjoyed listening to the pitches, and just keep in mind to tell that story and believe in yourself. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Lori Smith. I'm a partner with Goodwin Procter. We are a 700-lawyer law firm with offices in Boston, New York, California, and D.C. I head up our technology companies practice here in New York, and we work a lot with entrepreneurs and early-stage companies. And I always find it interesting to sit here and watch these pitches, as well as to sit and talk to entrepreneurs from time to time in our office, and sort of thought the best thing to do with my time today to help you is to really give you sort of 5 rules that I always try to impart on entrepreneurs when they come in and either want to use us for as their lawyer, or they want introductions to money sources and want to know how to do, how to approach them and what they need to do to approach them. Heard a lot today from some of you about developing your product, manufacturing your product. I heard someone say they're using developers in India, someone else saying they plan to manufacture it in China. Number 1 rule is protect not only your intellectual property, but your ideas. Patents and copyrights are great, but usually it just comes down to trade secrets and protecting confidential information. Rule number 1, if you're using outside consultants to do any kind of work, whether it's development, it's manufacturing, it's distributing for you, you need agreements with them. Anything they're going to do, they potentially could get rights in, and if it's consultant as a developer, that's the most risky. They own what they develop unless they assign it to you. It's very hard to go back to them later on and say, "Oh, just give it to me. I told you what it was for. Just assign it to me for nothing." So that's a big one. But it doesn't only go to outside consultants. It goes to people you might hire as employees as well. Those employees, when they work for you, what they produce belongs to your company, but you don't necessarily own all the ideas in their head and everything they've learned from being with you, and the customer lists and all the other things that they've learned from working for you. I mean, you really need to tie them up and have confidentiality agreements and openness with them. So it's important at the very early stages of what you're doing to be thinking about these things, because later on it becomes hard to fix it. 2, keep things simple. I heard one of the companies talk about how great it is to have strategic partners that want to take equity. Well, it's great because you have no money at this stage, but it really complicates your capital structure, and when some of these guys are looking at you to invest, they don't necessarily want these people that you gave equity to as partners. 3, keep good records, document everything. Again, you can't go back and recreate the wheel, and I've seen great companies not be able to get funding because they couldn't prove they owned something, or they couldn't prove who owned their company or something else. Be prepared. One of the things that I noticed today is we asked questions and didn't necessarily get direct answers. So that's one. I mean, you really have to be prepared. That there was a nice list in this book that someone pointed out of all the questions and things you should be addressing. You should be not only prepared for those, but every twist and turn that could happen with respect to those. Who is your competition? What are the barriers to entry? How are you going to market this product? How much is it going to cost to do all of those things? Not just today, but tomorrow and 6 weeks from now. You're not, you can't see into the future, but you should have done your research before you come to anyone for money. And it goes not just to your business, but what do you need? How much money do you need? What do you think the terms are going to be? And to do that, you really need to have done your research on how these deals are structured when you ask for money from people. It's not rocket science. Almost everything looks the same, whether it's at the angel stage or the venture capital stage. I'll give you a little tip that maybe somebody else here would give you. Go to something called NVCA.com, the National Venture Capital Association site. You will get a world of information there on what it looks like, what the financing documents look like, and what it is you should be thinking about. 5, these guys who have money, they're your friends, they're your partners, they're not your adversaries. And that's how you think about it when you approach them for money. It has to be a good fit. It's not just about the dollars, it's about what else they bring to the table, and it's about how well you can be able to work together.
My name is David S. Rose. I'm an angel investor. I'm actually the chairman of New York Angels, which is the largest angel investment group in New York and one of the most active in the country. We have about 70 members, including a lot of names you probably recognize, from Gideon Gartner and Esther Dyson to Alan Patrikoff to Scott Kernan, who founded About.com, a lot of the .com CEOs in New York. We've been around for about 3 years now, following an earlier incarnation when we were the angel investment wing of the New York New Media Association, NIMBA. We are very active in that we do 6 or 7 or 8 deals a year. We've done over 25 million in investments in the last 3 years, about half of which came from VC funds that are members of New York Angels. In addition to our members, we have about 10% of the group are actual VC, early stage VCs who invest. First, a little unsolicited plug. The woman to my right over here happens to be, many people think she's the best early stage counsel in New York. She does both sides of the house. She does both VCs and angels and companies. And we're actually working a deal right now where she is the counsel for both New York Angels on the one hand and the company on the other hand. And both of us have agreed that she can be the fair dealer in the middle, which is very, very unusual. So listen to what she says. Actually, I gave a speech to our group yesterday, and my last bullet point was listen to Lori. So that said, I think we've seen some very, very good, interesting pitches today. Obviously, a wide range of both thinking through and execution. Some people already have product in the market. Some are an idea of something you might like to do. Keep in mind that this is a business, and while for anybody who's coming up with an idea, it's probably your first time that you're doing it and you're learning as you go along. For people like the judges here, we see lots and lots of plans at all stages all the time. New York Angels, for example, have got 40 submissions last month. So when we're looking at your plan, we're looking at it in the context of all the other plans we've seen. It's not so much a competition, because frankly, we would love to do lots and lots and lots of investments. On the other hand, if you see 2 investments, one of whom has a fleshed out management team, a really clear statement of purpose, they know what they're doing, they know how they're going to get to market, they know who the competition is and so on, and somebody else who has a sort of fuzzy idea that really hasn't been well thought out, you know which way you're going to go. So you have to, in that sense, scale yourself. But I would encourage, in terms of resources, NBCA is great. New York Angels is an angel group, uses NBCA standard documents. I would suggest you go to our website, www.newyorkangels.com, all spelled out, NEWYORKANGELS, and there's a section there called For Entrepreneurs. And you'll see a bunch of information about how to approach us, the kind of things we're looking for, things you should think about in terms of your presentation. For example, we have mandatory pitch training for people who are applying. So if you come to us to get money and you make it through our screening process and you're to present to the group, before you're allowed to present, we insist that you go through a mandatory training in how to pitch us, because we want to see good pitches. And this week actually wrote an article about that, which you can check out online. Google the word pitch, the phrase in quotes, pitch coach. And the second or third article you'll see will be a thing about us, and that has a list of things you should include in your pitch. So with that said, let's get to our next judge.
Well, I've pitched a lot more than I've been pitched, but I did judge the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year contest last year, and I think all the times I was pitching potential investors, it seemed to me you have to be totally on top of your material. You have to practice answers to very tough questions. And in the end, I think what people invest in is you. They invest in the people behind the venture. And if many of you are young and not a lot of experience, I would recommend you include an advisory board in your presentation. Go out, try to find some people with experience in your area, and solicit information from them if you can, and then present them as part of your team. Because in the end, I think venture people and investors in general invest in people. They believe you can deliver, you'll get the money.
We call investing in bet the jockey, not the horse. Okay, so why don't we just go through now in order, I guess, all of the companies that we saw. And just a couple of sentences. Not everybody's going to speak about everything. We'll try and give you at least a comment or two on each of the plans that we've seen. First was Touch Calendars. I guess I'll start a quick take on that. Interesting plan. It's a space, potentially consumer electronics, communication, family stuff, growing, very good. The challenges there are that A, the price point is very expensive. $250 to $500 for something like that is a very, very, very expensive consumer electronics price point there. And also there's a lot of competition in that space now. Things like LG has a refrigerator that is now shipping, which actually has a touchscreen built into the refrigerator itself, which has some of those features already there in the kitchen at no additional cost other than the refrigerator. So an interesting concept, but some real challenges in terms of the prices that it might take.
Yeah, and then I would also add that if you are planning to launch something that has that kind of price point, it's important to understand what it takes to actually commercialize a consumer product like this. I mean, I equate it to like an Xbox or something. When you look at how much is spent to launch a product like that, it's a couple of orders of magnitude probably higher than what you have in the finance. It's just important to keep that in perspective.
Okay, Sweet Shelter.
Sure. So that, I thought that it was it's addressing a large market opportunity, which is important. But it's important to understand who will be the right customer for this, because a lot of times when you're the reason why eBay is so successful is that people are trading things that they understand. It's a ticket to a show. It's it's a book. It's very easy to understand what you're buying. A lot of what real estate agents do is to provide value-add services to this. They either show the apartment, they screen people for it. So if you're trying to just have people list something on a website, then you're competing against other places that actually also offer that kind of website. When you talk about an auction process, that only works again for products that you're familiar with. So it's important to understand what is that niche. The tricky thing there is when you say I want 1% of something huge, that will always be very big. But the truth is, it's important to identify what is that market, and then realistically, what chunk of that can you get?
Clearly, real estate is a big market. eBay is a big market. Online auctions, the way to buy and sell things, are a big market. So that's actually exciting, and that's very scalable because it's an online electronic thing that scales, as you saw that the projected numbers there, whether those are accurate or not. It has potential for really scaling, which is the kind of thing people like angels and VCs like to invest in, because with a little bit of effort you can get a big return. We thought the fact that there were the quotes from the VCs and stuff there was very cute, and we like that. I think we didn't quite fully understand exactly how you integrate an online auction process with physically looking at an apartment, and the fact that in answer to the question, it said that this comes in for the pricing after you decided to do it. It got us a little confused as to, do you go see the apartment, and then you go online to the auction and do the numbers. So there are a lot of questions that had to be answered. The presentation was a very good one, and the fact that the VC who was quoting there told us that, okay, it's at least worth another look just to try and get the answers to the questions to see if the promise is there. Okay. Next up was Renaissance. What? Oh, sorry.
Renaissance. I think this is the one we were a little unclear, maybe a couple of us, of exactly what the product was that was being pitched, or the service that was being pitched. And obviously we all read a little bit about it, so we have that, which it is a good idea. Just present that a little bit more clearly and how it's going to be delivered. Like thinking, is it going to be delivered via online? Is it essentially some other way? I think the delivery and definitely just more expansion of what the service will do if it is.
I just want to follow up on that. I mean, we needed more detail in the time that you had to really understand what it was you were doing. I didn't really understand how you were going to collect the data that was part of this cultural exchange. I didn't really understand what the value proposition was in terms of, I know this was a social venture, but really still it's supposed to be a venture that has sustainability and generates money to sustain itself. I didn't really understand where that was coming from. So I think that, again, it's going back to addressing the things that we need to hear in order to evaluate the venture.
Okay, applied learning. This is the PACE Business School free labor for companies, for students. I think we all thought this was a laudable thing, and we all thought the PACE should really run out to do this and get students involved with businesses. The question here is this a venture or is it a program that they should do? And the essence of a venture, social or otherwise, is one that is sustainable, uses commercial free market economies to make something sustainable. I don't think we were sure that was built in. That the grant is one thing, but an ongoing, if there was a way that you could get companies to pay for the services that they were getting in a way that the services could be delivered appropriately, given hours and given skill sets and so on, it might have been a little different story. But it's a good idea, just not necessarily a venture.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things which is a win-win for everyone. It's a win for PACE to spend the resources to actually make sure this happens because it's a good draw for students that are applying. And it's a win for, any one of our companies to have a dedicated team of students that's willing to do, free labor for us. So it doesn't necessarily require money per se. So that's why we struggle to classify that as a venture.
Okay, slightly delicious. I love the presentation. Heather was great. I'm sure she'd be a spectacular marketing person. And I think we were all rooting for this, and we'd love to see the restaurant there. But the problem is opening a restaurant in New York is about, that's like, talk about risk taking and jumping over the cliffs or corresponding.
Yeah, I think you'd have a very difficult time getting any of the money guys at this table to invest in a restaurant, even if it was Danny Meyer or Goodwin or some of the big name restaurateurs in the city. It's just a very, very, very tricky business.
And one other comment I'd make too is the question I had asked was to Heather, what would happen if something happened to you? I know the response is more of legally, but that wasn't what I was getting at. When we invest in a company, we're investing in a team. And as an investor, I always want to make sure that there's a solid team in the company, that there isn't just one person that if something did happen to them, I don't know what would happen to the venture. So I think it's important, again, having a good team behind you.
And Heather, I think I'd add myself here. You had a good response to talking with the chef and hiring that person, but management experience is a wonderful thing with the restaurant. Someone who's been there before and done that. Obviously, a startup, it can be difficult, but even from hiring people to firing people to running the kitchen and things like that. Put some thought into that and have some great answers to that. And, again, I like your presentation.
And then one other thing I would say is within a specific industry, the type of business that you're trying to do, there's a couple different business models in it. Either you're trying to do a very high throughput type lunch experience where you go in, you're in and out, you pay nothing and you're out, or you have these lounges with wireless cable that you come in, but then at the same time you're only charging them $4 and you're offering them organic food, which could be expensive. In any one of these things, it's very important to have a financial model because maybe what you're saying is actually true, but the only way we could actually believe it is to actually see you defend your assumptions and then see what that looks like.
What do you want to do?
I'll start. As I told these guys, I actually have some experience in this industry. I represented the company that's big success story was the game Sequence, and less success story was the game Kings in the Corner. They were in the toy and game business for about 30 or 40 years, and the one word of wisdom is it's a very, very difficult business to get any traction and sustainability for a new product. The monopolies of the world, have dominated the board game business, and people have moved away from offline gaming. So it's difficult just as a cultural matter right now, but it's also difficult to build a company around one product. This sounds like a great game. You're all intrigued by the game, but you really have to be thinking about a product line to build a company. If you just build a product, then you should be thinking about licensing it to a Hasbro or a Mattel, not really trying to build it on your own. The other thing is I asked the question on direct sales for a very specific reason, and that's because by direct sales, you will get initial buys, but unless you're going to spend a lot of money on marketing, the Barnes and Nobles of the world, the Targets of the world, they're not going to put their marketing dollars behind this scheme, so it's going to have to get some traction on its own. That's usually why people with new games in the game business end up licensing to the big guys.
I would just, make another comment about this licensing idea, because I think that a lot of different games have been successful with the licensing model, where you bring in $100,000, you do whatever's necessary in order to, get enough scale and get enough traction, and you license it out for millions. So that can provide a nice return. And here, the important thing is to actually know the people involved. But that can be pretty lucrative, as opposed to building out the company, which I guess you identified all the challenges in doing that.
And I guess I'd make one other comment. When I have companies like this, I question whether it's a product or it's a company. And what I didn't hear was, my next product, how am I going to produce it? So that's something that was important, I think.
Okay, next was New York Loan Exchange. The space is a blisteringly hot space, the whole question of microfinance and microequity. And so that's a case, again, where the space is very, very hot. The concept is very scalable, because you're talking about a computer-based internet thing with lots of lenders and lots of people looking for loans. But that's also the challenge, Ed, because that's like saying, online auctions are a wonderful thing, and I think I'm going to be just like eBay. eBay is a great kind of company, so I've got an online auction business. There's many a slip puts to cut the lip to get from point A to point B, and because it is so scalable and so fast growing, there are people already in the business, people like Prosper and other ones, who have already received decamillions in venture capital, who have very sophisticated operations that are in place. And one of our questions was, a New York Loan Exchange, if you're looking to do that kind of person-to-person lending, it doesn't necessarily have to be in New York, as opposed to something like Prosper, which is nationwide or worldwide. And I think we were a little concerned about the question of how you were to get from here to there, background in the space, and doing a business like this. It's a great business, but it's very non-trivial to do, and I think we'd like to see some more operational stuff there. Ethos.
Yeah, I think Alex and Chris are going to be pitching, well, they were pitching me a friend here. I'm not sure I understand how you draw your social network to the site, but your presentation was terrific, and you definitely should be applauded for that. You've got the right spirit and you've got the right knowledge. It would just be interesting to hear more.
I think, clearly, again, social networking is hot. So in general, investors tend to do two things. One, you're betting the jockey, which is the entrepreneur, and that's really vitally important. And the other one is the market space. And in the same way that a rising tide lifts all ships, if you're in a hot space, you'll have a better shot at having a really big return in a particularly hot space than in a particularly dead space. I think you will find almost universal agreement among VCs and angels that one of those two, either the space or the person, is the key thing to invest in. And social networking is hot, green is hot, there's a lot of stuff going on in the space. The idea of combining the two with online advertising marketing is a good one. There are, and the presentation, as Steve said, was very, very impressive. On the other hand, I think the valuation was substantially out of line with what we're seeing in the market. On the other hand, everybody tends to overestimate their valuations by an order of magnitude or thereabouts when they come in looking for funding, and the market will tell you what the appropriate valuations are. But I'd like to see a little more about how you plan to get penetration into the market space and where the actual money is coming from.
Yeah, I would say identifying exactly the client that you're going after. I mean, is this, one of the issues that I see of putting up my profile on that website, that all of a sudden I'm going to get pitched by, 300 different organizations that are trying to work with me. So I need to think about what are my incentives in that situation, as opposed to MySpace type of setting, but then you're competing with places like, just a blog or a MySpace. It's important to just articulate exactly who are the people that would love to go to this site, as opposed to the other things that are available.
363 Disability Solutions.
I mean, I would say I think it's an important need. I think it's a very good idea. The only issue, one of the things that we struggle with is that clearly I think a lot of these social initiatives that are sustainable are the ones which, we get more excited about. Because if it's just a matter of, having money go into the company, then, there's a lot of really good ideas out there, but the ones that really are able to be sustainable are the ones that become valuable. The issue here is that it doesn't seem to scale. You spend quite a bit of money to bring in the initial folks that will start working with the, initial clients of this, but then as you start to want to expand to 100 people, 300 people, you need more bodies, and you can try to get volunteers, you can try to get companies to give you money, but again, this is not really sustainable. You can't really grow, from that.
Which is a very key point. The social ventures are not just social programs that are a good thing, because there's no question that providing tech support and computer systems for people with disabilities in the underserved is a good thing. It's a great thing. I mean, we all love to do it. The problem is that's more of a program, a social services program, a social welfare program, a city program, a charitable program. The essence of social venturing is to try and use the levers of capitalism and the free market and commerce to create something that may not itself, the organization may not make a profit, but at least it is self-sustaining and carrying out its ongoing business. And I think that was our primary challenge with this. Okay, Thought Loft. This was the one that came in from the ether over here. I actually, the concept I thought was interesting. We had some interesting discussion on the panel here as to whether this is sort of the antithesis of the Web 2.0 world of online participation, where you're participating with everybody. And we had a presenter come in from England, and yet the pitch that we were seeing was a pitch for a physical location where you come in and drink coffee and think great thoughts and so on. There was, I think, clearly some interesting things about the presentation. I'm not sure we got a full feeling for exactly what it entailed, but it was intriguing. The dollars that he was trying to raise, I think were $4 million or something, or very, very substantial dollars that would be a bit of a challenge.
And remember, this is not too different from starting a restaurant. It's a little bit different, but the fact that you have a physical location, it still has the same challenges of, can you start a new coffee shop with an idea that you're going to pay a subscription fee to be a member of? And you have to think about it in that sense. It's not just a virtual community.
On that same vein, there's Cozy out there, and there's Starbucks, and you don't have to pay anything to be a member. So that's definitely an issue.
Second initiative. I think, again, on this one, like a number of the other projected social ventures, it's a great idea. Arab Israeli, youth, peace, email, wonderful. But this was one where there was no financial model at all. And we all thought it was a great concept, but as a business, if you don't see any financials, you don't see any income, you don't see any outgo, you don't see any business model for venturing, I think this probably wasn't necessarily the right place for that particular plan.
I agree. And that was something that you would pitch to a not-for-profit that is focused on international relations or something as a program they would have, or an educational not-for-profit as a program they would have that they would roll out. And I think the presenter said something about it's an after-school enrichment program, but that's, again, as David said, not a venture because it's just an add-on to the school system.
And it could almost be pitched as an academic study between, different social issues involved. It could be pitched as a documentary. So I think, I think the content you could generate there could be pitched for something that could be turned into something that could generate money.
And I'd also say that I'm not too thrilled about the idea of doing this kind of communication via email. I mean, maybe video where you could actually see somebody. Emails, we all know, can get miscommunicated, and if you're talking about groups of people that have really hot, heated discussions, it could end up as email wars, and so it's not something that I would be too excited about.
Okay, nomad skiing.
Yeah, I think my initial response was is this Club Med for skiers, which is a good thing, and if you can't hang out with people like you're single and you need a group to go skiing with, one of the different parts of the world, then that's a great thing. I think the presentation could have obviously had a little bit more of what this is really going to cost and what you're looking for. Always have that answer of if someone asks you how much money, you've got to know how much money you need, and be able to present that of what it's going to cost to do this and get it off the ground. That would be what I would say.
Not only how much you need, but what you can use it for.
So, how's that for a round of all these things? Now, I would be